Welcome to the Exit Strategy Master Plan. My name is Walter Badgeron, and this is Module 3. This module is all about getting the maximum price for your business. In this module, we're going to learn about identifying your buyer's threats. We're going to talk about identifying your buyer's opportunities, and we're going to find the strategic value in your business. So let's get started. The most profitable approach to finding the right strategic buyer is to find a potential buyer who has a serious problem that you can solve. Now, this may seem like a really simplistic approach, but there are countless acquisitions that are made for exactly this reason. The task of you as the seller is to be proactive in seeking out buyers where your company can take away a serious problem or a serious threat. Those buyers that have a serious problem, which can be resolved by your company, will give you the best opportunity to be paid a premium price for your business. Now, to better understand the circumstances that drive this type of acquisition, think of the problem or threat as a potential or even an actual reduction in revenue for a buyer if they don't take any action. Normal business life is littered with such threats such as price wars, introduction of new technology, new legislation does this all the time, maybe even loss of a major distribution channel, and so on and so forth. External threats occur when a buyer has no effective control over the event, but it will still impact their ability to compete if they don't do anything about it. The other form of threat is from internal situations that disrupt the business or reduce its capability or even create some type of negative change in its future plans. So the strategic value for the acquirer, the buyer, is created when the threat can be eliminated or at the very least reduced through the acquisition of your business. The problem-solving approach is to identify the situations in which your company's strategic assets or strategic capabilities counter a threat for that buyer that has both the capacity and the willingness to enter into an acquisition. So let's talk a little more about some of the examples of the external threats that buyers can face, such as when a major customer stops doing business with that buyer. That's a hell of a potential external threat for a buyer. Or when a major supplier is unable or even unwilling to provide a product or service to a company. Maybe a major supplier is being purchased by a competitor of the buyer. That's another great external threat that you might be able to eliminate. Also, new competitors entering the market could be another threat to one of your buyers. What about a competitor introducing a more advanced product? Or a current competitor becomes more effective at marketing or sales. Changes in legislation are really another possible potential problem for a buyer. Natural disasters happen all the time. You know, Hurricane Katrina came in and did a whole lot of this to New Orleans in my own area, in my business. So it was very easy as an external threat for us to provide solutions to other businesses, and there were a lot of other acquisitions going on in that area during that natural disaster. Another potential external threat would be a loss of a major contract. This is losing a major customer. Or loss of a distribution channel. This can also coincide with natural events or natural disasters such as Hurricane Katrina. Comes back to it, an entire distribution channel was lost when all that stuff went underwater. So think about these things as not as predatory, but as external threats to other companies. Another external threat would be changing customer buyer patterns. That can certainly be another external threat. Now let's look at internal threats, such as loss of a key employee or lack of funding or some kind of bank financing. What about major delays on product development? These are all internal things, internal problems that you could use as strategic assets. What about serious personal health or family issues of the senior executives of potential buying companies? What about an urgent need to buy out investor or partner, even needing to liquidate so that a business owner can retire? All these things generate strategic value for a company. Solving a serious problem or overcoming a major obstacle or even just removing a constraint are ways in which you can offer significant strategic value to a buyer. The buyer needs to see that value beyond what is represented by an earnings on your income statement. It's created this strategic value by being able to achieve a premium price for your business. Now, Most business owners know their industry and they understand their own assets and capabilities. We can think of these as things that we own and things that we do. The process of seeking out strategic buyers based on solving a problem is to think of how other businesses would use these assets and capabilities for themselves. Those businesses that can use these assets or capabilities to overcome a problem or a threat, these are your potential strategic buyers. And these are the types of companies who you want to be in your top 10 list. So now we're going to go into the worksheets. And in exercise number 1, you're going to find out the external and internal threats that your top 10 strategic buyers face to the best of your knowledge. Here you're going to use the industry connections and the research media to find out as much detail as you can about your potential buyers. We did a lot of this work in the previous module, so I want you to go ahead and use that exact same approach. Now let's look at opportunities. Opposite of the threats that strategic buyers face are the opportunities that can exist and be leveraged through combining with other businesses. You know, the most attractive of these scenarios is where the buyer can leverage the acquired assets or acquired capabilities and open up new markets and generate significant revenue. Some of these opportunities include changing needs of customers or new legislation. They could include failure of a competitor. We talked about natural disasters, but you also think about terrorist activities too. Some new solutions to old problems might be opportunities. Dramatic improvement in product utility or even functionality. It could also be a significant reduction in cost of a product or a service. Often your buyer will see external opportunities, but they don't have the assets or capabilities to take advantage of them. This is fertile ground for small companies like yours who have products and services that can be used by larger corporations to pursue these opportunities. The strategy of the buyer is to utilize those acquired assets and those capabilities to take advantage of this opportunity. Your objective is to identify the match between what you have or what you do with those potential opportunities of that buyer. Your challenge will be to show the buyer how your assets and capabilities can be leveraged and give them additional business. Here is also the key to the price the buyer is going to pay to you, because the price is directly proportional to the scalability of this opportunity and the rarity of the solution. So the more the opportunity can be scaled, the greater your financial reward. You're in a much more powerful negotiating position if your solution is the only possible solution. So rarity comes into play here. This may be a factor of a location, might be a factor of timing, might be a factor of size, maybe the company culture, the technology, and so on. So let's go to the worksheets. Here is how you can identify those opportunities that the buyer is looking for. Just as in exercise number 1, you're going to do the same thing for exercise number 2. You're going to go through each of your top 10 buyers and identify, using your research media and those connections from the previous module, to help you research these answers. Now let's talk about enhancing existing products or enhancing existing markets. Now, you might be able to provide the buyer the capability to reduce his costs or enhance the sales value of their existing products. That increases their margins, so you're increasing their profits. This may be through better technology or better processes, better capabilities in sales and marketing. So if you can do these things, you are a great asset to that company. Some additional benefits may come from combining operations to gain lower costs through economies of scale or learning curve effects. Increased customer penetration or increase in frequency of the use may come from finding additional uses of an existing product by incorporating new components or replacing components or changing packaging or even changing marketing messages. You may be able to show your buyer how technologies or processes or knowledge could enhance their existing products and create an entirely new business within those existing markets. Another thing you might better do is you might better help them take new products to their existing customers. Now, many acquisitions are made by corporations to acquire products that they're able to sell through their current distribution channels and to their existing customers. By expanding the portfolio of products, they really are using a cost-effective method and they're already having established client relationships already in place. So this is another great way for them to use you as an asset to bring those new products to their existing customers. Another thing you can do is take their current products to new customers. Your company may have access to a customer base where their buyer has little or no presence. This could be a new geographical area or even a new industry. They can then switch the customer solution across to their own products, providing economies of scale benefits as well as taking out a competitor. Now, this strategy is also used to increase coverage within an industry, especially when you're expanding overseas or into another large area where the buyer will be really acquiring a presence in a market. Plus, you're going to give them local knowledge. You're going to give them local capability. You may even already have distribution channels and have achieved a critical mass of that business. This strategy can be especially effective when your company has a really large customer base but few products. So a buyer that has a wide range of products which can be sold to that acquired customer base in your business is effectively buying an already developed channel to market. Another thing you can do is cross-sell both products to both customer bases. You see, your company may have a set of products which can be sold into the existing distribution channel of the buyer. At the same time, the buyer may have products which are able to be sold back into your customer base. This type of acquisition is especially attractive because little additional resources have to be used to introduce new products into already existing distribution channels. In these situations, the return on investment for the buyer can be especially high and the payback on their investment relatively short. All you need to do is to really clearly articulate this opportunity. You'll be well positioned for a handsome payday if you can do this. Now let me tell you a little bit about when my acquisition took place, that cross-selling played a huge role in this. The way that worked was, well, quite simply, they took their products and services, sold them to my clients, and taken my products and services and sold them to their clients. This cross-selling increased the amount of profit these guys made and effectively paid for the entire deal. So don't take this lightly. Another thing that you can do is take new products to new customers or a new market entry. This type of acquisition is expansion strategy where the buyer wants to break into a completely new industry, but really needs to require some kind of new capability in order to do this. So this could be in a related industry where there's some commonality in market approach, or it could be in a very different industry where the buyer has no synergy to leverage to do this. This strategy is often used by companies that are aggressively seeking growth or by companies trapped in declining industries and needing to find a new source of revenue. Another way to do this is to take a current product and a new product potential. You see, you might have products that your potential strategic buyer can use immediately within their own existing distribution channel. This alone may be sufficient to justify the entire acquisition. If your company has new products in development, which can open up new markets or new technology, which can be used over a longer period to enhance their existing products from either company, you offer a very attractive long-term benefit to the buyer. And while you may not be able to extract a premium for that longer-term potential, the acquisition might be much, much easier for a buyer to justify because you give them a greater commitment to getting this deal done by bringing that into play. You're definitely going to want to make sure that you play to multiple needs. Now, the best position for you to be in is to have solutions which play to multiple needs, especially of reducing a threat while offering access to new markets. You see, a threat places a time pressure on a buyer, while the rewards of new products or new markets allow them to more easily justify a premium price. Threat solutions, they can also be resented by the buyer because they might feel compelled to complete the acquisition, but may not really feel any kind of upside in this deal. So reward deals are more easily negotiated with a premium because the buyer can demonstrate how the investment's recovered through an increase in sales. Now let's start getting into a little bit of this. Let's talk about finding a strategic match. Now, the key to a strategic deal is to find the match between what you have or what you can do with what the needs of a large corporation. which either need or can greatly exploit your assets. So in order to optimize this match and determine where the highest sale price can be secured, you need a very good understanding of how to identify strategic assets and capabilities, and also an understanding of how to find the best strategic buyers. So the next step is to find out if you have any strategic assets or any strategic capabilities that match the threats or the problems of any of your potential strategic buyers. You see, the buyer must have both the need and the capability to buy. In this type of problem-solving scenario, it requires you to search for companies that need what your business has, that will overcome a major problem or a threat, but few corporations publicize these threats. This is why it's so important for you to have that list of resources that we covered in the previous module. This list will help you become a well-networked industry expert and enable you to spot these opportunities by using this systematic approach so that you can more easily cultivate these relationships and find out the details of problems of potential buyers. Look, sometimes it just requires a boldness to initiate some discussions with potential buyers and discover where a strategic fit might occur. Or it's using those resources that went over in the last module. But you have to go on a discovery mission to look inside your business and discover what you have that you can use as a strategic leverage. The fact that your business may not be using the specific asset or that capability to generate revenue may not even be aware of its existence, or you may be incorrectly applying it. This simply makes the task harder. Strategic value is found in an asset or a competency within your company that a large corporation can leverage and solve a major problem or generate significant revenue for them. To understand its potential, we need to look inside the buyer's organization to see how it might be exploited. So what we're going to do is to go back to the basics and build a model of a strategic asset or a strategic capability, and then look inside your company to see what we can find. Now, we can do this with a set of metrics around what creates high strategic value. Now, this may simply end up confirming what you already know about your company, but it also has a real strong probability of uncovering additional assets in your business. Let's look at what strategic assets you have in your business. Now, strategic assets are those things that your business has which can eliminate threats or provide opportunities for the buyer. These things include things like intellectual property, that's patents, trademarks, brands. They could include your client base. They could include your distribution channel. They could include a technology or some technical process within your company. They could include documented knowledge. They could include agreements or contracts, physical property and equipment in the inventory. Those are all great assets. They could include your locations. They could also include your advisors, your directors, your managers, and your employees. This could also include access to specific institutions and organizations. It could include licenses or membership status or authorizations. It could include social or government or business network. The list goes on and on. Strategic competencies or capabilities are things that your company does especially well, which can be leveraged or can solve a problem for an acquirer. Now, a strategic competency are things like marketing and promotion. Competency could be product development. Competency could be product design or manufacturability. It could be sales and after-sales support. It could be procurement and quality control. It could be networking or managing distributors. It could be managing large projects that are really complex. With any potential strategic asset or competency, the key is to think in terms of how it might be used by a buyer. Very often, the most valuable skill is part of one of your processes, but it's not always the most obvious. You might simply focus on your sales results or your bottom line, but you may not recognize what you actually do really well to get there. Your most valuable skill might be, let's say, product design rather than sales. In the hands of a strong marketing and sales company, your design skills might be used to generate significant money for a buyer. Or the asset or competency you have may not necessarily be contributing to your existing business. The key question here is not whether it's a key asset or competence within your company, but whether it will be a strategic asset to the buyer. Often a smaller business simply doesn't have the resources to exploit all the assets and knowledge that it has. There may be patents that are registered but not used in a business. There might be offices or warehouses or factories not in use. There might be excellent locations which could be better exploited in a different business. Even a business that it's running smoothly, operating at a profit, and providing the owner with a comfortable salary may not be extracting the maximum value from its resources. And in the hands of a different owner, these underused and underexploited assets and capabilities might generate significant revenue to a strategic buyer. The buyer might also be able to bring new energy and increased funding, new distribution channels, new skills to the situation, and we're going to go through a few exercises so that we can find those. All right. The next exercise number 3. So go to your workbook and look inside your business and list all the things that you do or that you have that can be leveraged and create significant value for a potential buyer by answering these questions. The first question: if we didn't have that asset or capability, where would we be competitively and financially? Go to the workbook, answer that question. The next question you want to ask yourself is, what do we as a company have, or what do we do which some other company would find attractive, or which another company could leverage much more than we could? The next question would be, what constraints do we have on our ability to grow that another company in our industry does not have? And lastly, how could they develop our potential if that constraint were removed? Okay, go to your worksheets, finish those up. Let's talk now about strategic scalability, making things larger. Strategic acquisitions are undertaken to leverage off your assets and capabilities. Now, this would normally imply some level of scalability of the activity associated with that strategic asset or that capability. So you need to do everything you can to foresee a real likely path of scaling your assets and capabilities, and then show your buyer how easy it will be for them to exploit that potential. Assume you were given the resources and the need to generate 10 times the revenue from your products or services. What would you have to do to build the capacity to support that level of activity? What resources would you have to put in place to get started? Would you even be able to clearly articulate what would need to be done if that opportunity were to present itself? Now, which corporations already have the capability? Which corporations already have that capacity to provide the environment to quickly reach that target? Now, when you start to look at what constrains your business, you can see what a possible buyer could do to release all that potential. Here we go. Now we're in exercise number 4, and you're going to answer these following questions. If you had the resource to grow faster, which products or services would you choose to concentrate on? Answer it in your workbook. Why did you choose those specific ones? The ones you choose, the why is just as important. What was there about them that encouraged you to choose them rather than the other parts of the other products of your business? Now, part 2 of this identification of these assets is to review of a list of what already exists within your company and to start to think about how these might be leveraged by a large corporation. And what you're going to do is you're going to fill these out in exercise number 5. Think about these things: access rights, or licenses, or patents, or brand names. You know, buyers can sometimes really get frustrated with their own expansion plans in an industry because they lack the intellectual property to do that. This might be a license to operate, or could be a recognized brand or access to a technology that's protected by patents. If competitors have those rights or those expertise and they're leveraging it to gain market share, look, now a buyer has a major threat by not having these assets. And sometimes the only way for a critical mass to be acquired quickly is to buy a company just like yours that already owns all these assets. Another thing you might have as an asset is a gateway capacity or a technology. You see, often in specific industries, the ability to compete may very well depend on owning a share of the channel or the access path to that channel. If, for example, capacity within the channel is only able to grow at a limited rate, the company that has control over part or all that capacity has considerable influence over market share. And if that's you, you've got a great asset in your business. The same logic would apply to a market where existing suppliers or existing vendors effectively have control over the market due to high switching costs to other vendors or to other suppliers. So this could be one of your assets. Think about how you can apply this to your business as a strategic asset. Do you have high-profile customers or hard-to-acquire customers? Your buyer may want to enter into a market or expand beyond a certain point, and that may require them to secure the business of certain key accounts. If those key accounts are already being serviced by your company, then the only way forward may be to acquire you. So look into your customer list and find any highly desirable customers, especially those that you have a great relationship with. Remember, it's not simply about having that list of big customers. It's really about having a great relationship with your customers that counts. Another asset you may have are key locations that could serve as a launching pad for expansion. You know, the cost of entering a new market from scratch may really be prohibitively high in terms of time or investment. And existing businesses may, however, have built sufficient critical mass and infrastructure that they can provide a launching pad for further expansion into the market. Also, that company, your company, may have a location and are not fully utilizing all the square footage. So not only can a buyer use your company as a launching pad into a new market, but your location could continue to serve in the future as the buyer continues to expand. And that's a great asset for you. Think about all these things. You may have new products that help your potential buyer fill out their portfolio. In markets where the number of products is really large, they got a lot of products, channel members try to limit their administration load by working with other partners that can offer a wide range of complementary products. And your buyer might be faced with erosion in their market if their competitors can offer wider ranges of products than they can. So a buyer can simply acquire a company like yours that has a complementary product line, and that can help to counter that competitive pressure. It might be a real successful method for retaining their existing business, and this is another great strategic asset for you to have. Another thing you want to make sure that you list, if you have it, are highly networked or well-known industry leaders. Well-known industry leaders can sometimes be the only way into a market or even into an industry, depending on the level of competition, especially if a company is threatened with a loss of contracts. It's likely trying to acquire a company with a highly networked management or highly networked profile industry leaders who can secure them a place at the table. It's all about who you know in this case. If you have someone, a well-known industry leader, that you can leverage as an asset, do that. Put that on your list. The next thing you want to do is make sure that if you have an experienced management team, that's an asset to you. A corporation with a poor performing business unit or a situation which requires unusual expertise might seek to acquire a smaller firm just like yours and pay top dollar for it just to be able to acquire a fully operational management team. Now that you have this list of complete threats and opportunities that your potential buyers face, as well as a list of strengths that they can exploit to grow their companies, the last step you're going to take is to match the two up. To take your two lists of buyer threats and opportunities and match them each up with your strategic assets and capabilities. This will allow you to see exactly how you're going to position your business for a strategic acquisition and be able to command a payment, great payment for your business. So go to your worksheets, make sure I got it on there. Go to your worksheets and complete exercise number 6. Take the time you need to do all these exercises in the detail to make them right and accurate. Don't skimp on these answers. Don't take shortcuts to minimize the number of assumptions that you got to make. Use your resources. Use the research of the potential buyers that we already went, and do the work necessary, because your payoff for this work will enable you to live the lifestyle of financial liberation that you truly deserve. And that's what this Exit Strategy Master Plan is all about. So in this module, here's what we covered. We covered how to identify the top 10 potential buyers, their threats, and their opportunities. You've done the worksheets, so you now know how to identify your own strategic assets and your own strategic capability. And even more importantly, you've matched your buyer's assets with your buyer's threats and opportunities. In the next module, you're going to learn how to build your selling team so you can take all this and start to put together your own deal and get the right buyer to pay you top dollar for your business. I said it before and I'll say it again. Keep in mind that this program is about implementation of each module, and that's just important, if not more important than the knowledge that you've received. Now, in order to get it all completed, I want you to set up a massive action work environment. So set aside the time to complete each exercise in this module and in all the other modules. Even if that means you've got to make an appointment with yourself or make an appointment with your team, make sure this gets done. If you're completing these exercises with your team, set aside time for each of you to work independently and then time for you guys to get together and create this shared vision. Don't worry about making it look pretty or neat or get all the exact words or get the details just right. It's about getting the concepts onto paper and implementing everything. If it takes finding a quiet room where you won't be disturbed, do that. Put a do not disturb sign on the door, close it, lock it. Put the phone on do not disturb or just unplug it. Turn off your cell phone, email, any instant chat messaging features at all. Close out all the program except the one you're using to focus on these exercises. So go out now, take massive action, and make sure that you can experience your own day of financial liberation with your exit plan master strategy. Welcome to the Exit Strategy Master Plan. My name is Walter Bergeron, and this is Module 4. This module is all about building your selling team. In this module, we're going to learn about identifying your team members. We're going to talk about their roles. We're going to talk about your accounting advisor. We're going to talk about your legal advisor. And then we're going to talk about your deal coach. So let's get started. You know, to the uninitiated, doing acquisitions appear to be really complex and certainly not for the meek at heart. You must be willing to step way outside your comfort zone because when you're doing acquisitions like this, it requires a business owner to really rally support from outside and bring in resources required, mostly attracting expertise, but not as employees as you're probably accustomed to, but as independent advisors. In the various dimensions in the deal process, you're going to need different advisors. So team building is a major groundwork that you're going to need to have in place. And here are some of the major professional roles that you need to fill. Now keep in mind that an individual or even a firm may perform more than one of these roles. You need the business broker or investment banker for sourcing buyers. You're going to want a transaction accountant for financial due diligence. You're going to want a tax accountant for deal structuring and tax due diligence. You're going to want a valuation advisor for independent value determination and even assessment. You're also going to want a legal team to look at all the legal representations and warranties and reviews. You're going to want a financial advisor and a banker for deal financing arrangements. And you're also going to want a deal coach for general coaching and support for the business, you as the business owner. You know, you probably already know how to properly package your product or your service to achieve a profitable sale. You probably don't have the same skills, though, when it comes to selling your business, because selling a business is a highly specialized activity with its own set of legal and accounting issues. And this is one area where experience really does count. You'll also find that when it comes to selling a business, based especially on strategic value, that this is not something that many advisors have a lot of experience with. Now, there are a few professional advisors who understand how to position a sale around your business's strategic potential, and the inexperienced often tend to push the deal back into a conventional framework based on an earnings multiple or that financial-based business valuation we talked at the very beginning of this course. And when they do that, they miss the whole point of this deal type and this structure. They're not only a waste of time, but they tend to actually get in the way of the deal being done properly. So your choice of advisors is a pretty critical factor when it comes to selling your business to a strategic buyer. Now, apart from the support you're going to need from your professional legal team and your accounting advisors, the remaining members of your team really depends on, well, it depends on how well you understand the process of selling a business. So whether you have already have willing buyers in your sights or whether you have a fully and properly prepared this business for sale, all that really matters. If you're unsure about how you should prepare your business in order to achieve the best offer, or if you're uncertain how to attract the right buyers, then getting help from professionals who do these things on a regular basis makes perfect sense. Even an experienced entrepreneur who has sold several businesses should have an advisor on his team to help out with negotiations. Look, there is tremendous benefit to having an objective, knowledgeable person on your team to provide you with really timely feedback, deal-making suggestions, and to keep the negotiation process moving forward. The smart entrepreneur needs good advice and smart people to support the sales process, and this results in a much better price for your business. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to have to hand over the entire process to your team, because while they are your team, see, they have a different motivation in getting this deal done. Their motivation is to get a quick sale, a quick commission check. That's not your motivation. At the same time that you're preparing the business for sale and position it with potential strategic buyers, professional legal and accounting firms need to be selected to help you with the preparation and the sales transaction support. This process often requires you to do your own due diligence as a part of the preparation process. And by proactively doing your own due diligence review, you'll discover risks in your business which can be addressed long before a potential buyer discovers them. Now, not only does this improve the current business, but it significantly reduces the buyer's due diligence and the costs, as well as the time during all these contract negotiations, which makes the sales process even faster. A business that's well prepared for buyer handover is going to attract better buyers and ultimately a better price for you. So let's talk about the two real major players on your team besides you. They are your accountant advisor and your legal advisor. So let's start with the accountant advisor. Now, the type of advice and help which a professional accountant advisor will give you includes assistance with helping you with your valuation, helps you review your financial projections. They brief you on how best to present your case to the buyer. They're going to help you understand how a buyer does his valuation to ensure that you have prepared all the proper information and present it properly, and that helps the buyer able to validate any underlying assumptions and values. So let's go over in more detail exactly where a good accountant advisor can help you most with. They can certainly help you with reviewing financial documents. Now, your current financial information needs to be prepared according to generally accepted accounting principles and presented in a conventional format, and that allows for easier analysis. Your advisor can ensure that these statements are prepared correctly and that the accompanying data fully supports any kind of detailed investigation that the buyer is going to do. This information is normally reviewed by your advisor to ensure that all the financial information is presented on a consistent basis from year to year, and that any extraordinary or even abnormal items are fully explored. They can also help you with introductions and referrals. You know, a well-established accounting firm and investment banks, these guys participate regularly in transactions involving buyers. They're really good, and therefore they're in a really great position to know which local large corporations are on a personal basis with them, certainly if not personally, definitely by reputation. So if they think that you have a good business proposition, they can help you get to the short list of potential buyers that you should approach, and that can help with introductions and referrals. They may also be able to assist you with the search for prior acquisitions and with uncovering new items which often relate to them. So they're going to have connections that assist you to contact prior sellers so you can gain an independent review of the potential buyer. Now, since many professional firms have national and international offices and affiliate networks associated with them, this can be used to uncover tons and tons of possible buyers and generate all these introductions. So having the right potential buyers in this final bid process makes a huge difference to the ultimate sales price. And your accounting team does that for you by helping you with these introductions and referrals. The next thing we want to talk about is they can actually help you review all the purchase terms and conditions. Now, purchase agreements are often set out in a conventional format, but you're not normally in a position to know exactly what terms would be reasonable for your business, and your accounting advisor will be able to recommend where you need to renegotiate these terms of course, along with the help from your legal advisor. They're going to help you with all these negotiations. They're going to assist you in these negotiations, especially when your company is represented by a well-established and well-respected advisor. You're likely to be a lot better prepared for this negotiation. At the same time, the buyer knows that the terms are going to be reviewed by a knowledgeable party. This is going to result in a more productive set of discussions, and the result is likely to be better for your company. Also, the buyer may prefer to deal with a business represented by a professional advisor, since the buyer knows that they won't need to educate you about conventional terms and conditions or warranties and representations that are required under a normal deal. Your account advisor is going to help you know these things. Your account advisor is going to give you advice on preparation. The preparation for an acquisition is much more than preparing a business plan. The advisor is going to review all of the likely buyer's investment criteria and investment process in advance of the management team to ensure that you've prepared yourself for both the negotiation and the due diligence process. Absolutely invaluable to your business. Then comes time for due diligence. Due diligence is going to be carried out by the buyer as part of their evaluation of this acquisition opportunity. This is most likely some kind of it's going to be a product and market evaluation to see if the two merged businesses can actually support any of the opportunities that you're going to claim. After the business terms of the acquisition are agreed upon, the buyer is going to carry out an even more extensive review to further ensure that it has a thorough understanding of your entire business as well as your management team. They also want to make sure that they uncover any discrepancies and any investment risks. And so your account advisor can do a trial due diligence to ensure that your company is fully prepared and help you correct any of those deficiencies. They, of course, can also give you tax advice. Few companies are structured from the outset when they're started to be optimal for a sale. Over time, the tax laws are going to change, especially with regard to retirement strategies, trusts, and capital gains, and all these options. So the corporate structure of the business may not necessarily be suitable for an outright sale or be optimal if there's an earn-out portion. And a professional accounting firm can review the current business processes to make sure that you're in compliance, make sure that you have all your tax collection reporting all done. At the same time, your personal tax planning should start and be established for the plan for this sale. So this is going to include, at best, a format for the sale of shares or a sale of assets. So making sure that your accounting advisor is involved in this is a real key portion of your exit strategy. Now, from their knowledge of prior acquisitions, your account advisor is going to help you define the business potential and your strategic value. They're also going to help you identify integration issues or show you how your company can best position itself for this strategic sale. Now, the next member of your team is going to be your legal advisor. Now, this type of advice and assistance which a professional legal firm can provide includes help with reviewing the purchase agreement. Now, the purchase agreement is a really complex document which, quite frankly, few entrepreneurs will have ever seen, and certainly few would understand in any real depth. But your professional legal firm, they can draft these documents for you or construct the terms and conditions, and they'll help you identify any harsh or unusual conditions which the buyer has requested. And then they'll, of course, assist you in a renegotiation of those terms where the buyer prepares a document. Another thing your legal team is going to do for you is they're going to review any warranties and representations that you make. You're going to be expected to provide warranties and representation and indemnities to the buyer. Don't worry if you don't understand this, your legal team will help you with this. Now, these are often renegotiated to be less harsh, and your professional legal firm is going to know what is reasonable and what's not. So this is one area where proper preparation, good reporting, and compliance systems, as well as good management, can significantly reduce your legal exposure, and your legal team will help you do these things. The legal team is also going to help you review employment or non-compete agreements. Your buyer is going to expect the key executives and major shareholders to enter in some kind of an employment agreement or a non-compete agreement. And your professional legal firm is going to be able to ensure that the terms and conditions that are associated with these agreements are reasonable. They're going to talk to you and help you with the preparation of a disclosure letter. So you should be prepared to disclose any issues that might affect the decision of the buyer to make that purchase. This should also identify any potential business liabilities. The professional legal firm is going to be able to advise you on any of these disclosures, as well as know how the letter should be worded to best protect your company and to ensure that there's no avenue for a redress on the part of the buyer if things don't go as planned. Because whether you like it or not, the buyer can come back on you after the deal is done. Your legal team will help you to prevent that. A review of corporate documents. As part of preparation for the sale, the legal firm is going to review all your corporate documents. This review is going to extend from your board minutes, your shareholder agreements, any material contracts that your company's entered into. And depending on size of transaction, you really should be planned for approximately anywhere between 5 and 10% of the sale price to be spent on their professional services fees. Noting that, maybe smaller transactions likely have a higher percentage associated with the advisor's fees. So keep in mind, there is a substantial cost to having this team, and that's why they're going to do so much of this for you. Now, lastly, you want to have a deal coach on your team. Look, there is a tremendous benefit to having an objective, knowledgeable person on your team to provide you with timely feedback as the negotiations get going. Look, someone to give you deal-making suggestions and to keep the deal-making and negotiation process moving forward and help remind you of the big picture goal of this transaction and help you so you don't get bogged down in all these details and so that you don't miss out on this great opportunity. The smart entrepreneur needs good advice and needs smart people to help them with this sales process. This is going to result in a much better price for your business. Now, the deal coach must have at least, I say, these 4 prerequisites met. 1, they've actually been a business owner. You certainly don't want just an advisor who's never actually gone through this. The second thing you want is they've actually sold their own company, not just help one sell their company. They'll have a whole different perspective if they've used their own money and done this type of transaction with their own company than if they simply advise someone else on how to do this. 3, they've sold a company to a strategic buyer, not a financial buyer, a strategic buyer. That means they've done this kind of deal. And then 4, that they're not in the same industry as you are. Now, I know this seems counterintuitive, but if they're in the same industry as you are, they're going to have certain biases and opinions. But if they're from outside your industry, they're going to have a new perspective and actually a different angle to approach your deal with. So my deal coach actually helped me quite a bit. Let me show you exactly what he was able to help me do. So during a transaction with my business, I was here as the seller, and a buyer came along that made me an offer. I couldn't see the actual strategic value from doing this, but here's what they did, and here's why they were able to pay me such a high price for my business. They took, this is my customer base, this is the buyer's customer base. What they were able to do is they were essentially, even if they were exactly the same size as my business, let's say that they were a $1 million company and I was a $1 million company. On day one, at the closing of this sale, they actually doubled the size of their business to become a $2 million company. This was something that happened overnight, but they didn't stop there because they were smart strategic buyers. They took the sales that I was making from me as a seller and took those products and services and started selling them to their client base. What that did for them is essentially, over a very short period of time, took that $2 million deal and turned it into a $3 million deal. But they didn't stop there. They also, the buyer took their products and services and cross-marketed them to my client base, which essentially took that $1 million deal, went to $2 million deal, $2 million overnight, $3 million deal because they sold it to those customers there, and turned that into, make sure I'm writing that right, a $4 million deal by simply cross-marketing the products and services to different companies. This is what a deal coach can reveal to you and show you exactly where the money comes from in these deals. And I would have missed this and not gotten the full value for my business had my deal coach not explained this to me. Now, there are also other team members that you may want to have access to, but start with these team members and ask their advice on whether you need more type of professionals to get involved with your transaction. Now, in these deals, experience counts. Not all professional services have the necessary experience to undertake this type of work effectively. You should not assume that your current accountant or your current lawyer has the expertise to properly advise you in this area. So you need to speak and you need to seek out independent advice as to which professional service firms are the best equipped to handle this transaction. Now, before you start to incur costs for their services, you need to do some of your own due diligence and investigate the advisor's firm and make sure that they have a track record of success in working with clients on sales and acquisitions of similar-sized businesses or similar-sized buyers. See, some advisors, whether they be accounting or legal or corporate or finance executives, are so locked into that traditional model of company valuation that they simply don't get it. They're going to want to do a conventional valuation based on historical earnings, and they're not going to grasp the impact of the opportunity which you can extract from a strategic value in your business. Certainly you and they are going to have difficulty in trying to put a value on the business, especially if it's based on the buyer's potential rather than your net worth or profitability. And your advisors may be uncomfortable moving forward on that basis. But if you've got a clearly identified potential buyers that have expressed interest in an acquisition, this should provide you a good base from which they can assist you to prepare the business for sale. So if your initial discussions with a professional advisor show that they want to take you down the conventional path, you should move on and find one that can feel best represent you in your potential strategic purchase. You get what you pay for. Entrepreneurs who have not participated in these large transactions are often concerned about how much it is going to cost, about entering into relationships with investment banks and larger accounting and larger legal firms because they feel these firms are going to carry a bunch of overhead, and all this overhead and cost is going to get filtered back down to the client with much higher fees. And look, let's face it, that's probably true. And these larger firms do typically have higher rates, but they also need to compete for services of smaller clients. And so it's not unreasonable if you're a smaller client for them to ask them for a smaller fee for your company. This means that the rates, quite frankly, they can be negotiated. So ask for a better rate, at least see what happens. But don't skimp on the quality of the team. Make sure you get quality, and don't sacrifice that just for a cheap rate on the cost of the team. Size counts also. The larger firms do have an advantage of being national and even international and having specialists in all sorts of different areas. This can be of a great benefit to smaller companies like yours that are involved in complex sales transactions. And when it comes to contracts and agreements which affect the value dilution of the deal, a little more upfront may better protect the value of your company during the ultimate sale. And it would certainly apply to any intellectual property agreements, any options, any shareholder agreements, and any acquisitions that your company enters into. The larger professional advisors have a big advantage in mergers, acquisitions, transactions. They see them often. They regularly advise both buyers and sellers in these things, acquisitions and sales. Larger accounting and legal firms are often used to undertake due diligence work on behalf of large corporations, and so they're more familiar with the entire process. These larger firms are taken more seriously when it comes time to negotiation, so they can better protect you, the entrepreneur who's never experienced these type of deals. So in the end, it may come down to spending a little bit more over a longer period of time to be better prepared, rather than spending a whole lot right near the end and not getting the price when you close the transaction. The deal is likely to be better managed and be less risky as a result of having that more professional preparation. At the same time, the impact of a large professional firm in the deal process enhances your reputation, possibly getting you a better price for the business. Certainly, it should definitely speed up the due diligence process, which in itself can have a real significant positive effect on the whole deal price. It should also speed up the negotiations, since the buyer knows that he's not going to have to educate you about terms and conditions of a sale or all the legal matters that go into this. So planning for and pulling this team together in preparation for the sale is the most important thing that the most savvy of entrepreneurs do. The deal team is the mastermind for every successful acquisition and literally makes or breaks the entire process. So when working with the pros, as you can see, buying a business requires a lot of diverse skills as well as selling a business. It's like a typical team sport that needs to work seamlessly. Each team member needs to be clear as to what they're responsible for and to what extent. Before you start the process of looking for a business to buy, a business that's going to buy you, and then move into negotiating and closing a deal, you need to decide on how much of the work you want to delegate to others and how much you're prepared to do yourself using your own in-house personnel. If your sale is fairly straightforward and you want to limit expenses, you might decide to perform many of the routine tasks yourself, using occasional expert help from a lawyer or an accountant or perhaps a business broker to provide you professional vetting for a lot of the tasks that go into the selling processes, such as sample documents and all sorts of other things that they can provide for you. But to make this approach work, you need to find professionals who are willing to offer advice and serve as objective sounding boards and do some of the technical chores without trying to take over the entire job, because you are the deal leader. Now, you may need more than occasional professional help and rely much more heavily on that professional assistance, doing little or any of the work yourself under these circumstances. So if you've never sold a business before, let them take the deal. Go get yourself some help. Don't try to undertake this on your own. Or if you're selling a business to a sophisticated buyer and who's aided by a team of seasoned professionals, you want to have their seasoned professionals meet with your seasoned professionals. Or you anticipate there being some or any unusual legal or financial complexities that go beyond ordinary business activities. Get the team really involved. Or if the deal involves a substantial amount of money, which I certainly hope it does for you, you want to make sure that the terms and conditions in the agreement do not expose you to any future potential liabilities. You also want to make sure that your team takes a large chunk of this if you're selling a business that owns or will be transferring to the buyer any real estate or any significant intellectual property. You also might want to do it if you're unsure about the best way to include co-buyers or other parties in your transaction. You need some seasoned professionals to help you structure these type of deals. Just remember, though, that you're responsible for every decision. These professionals are only there for the deal to support you in making the best decisions. Now, who is your team? You're the quarterback in this team. In these deals, you call the shots, and your team of experts gets these things done. You're the leader of the team, and they simply execute your plays. So you need to be very familiar with what plays to call and when, and that's what this program is about. There will be deals that don't go through, and there will be negotiations that end after the very first meeting. But even if you decide not to close on a deal, it's really wise to be able to assess the strengths and weaknesses of your own organization as well as those of the potential buyer. You'll be able to see what you're doing better than other businesses, or what other businesses are not doing things right and how they can be improved in your own business, especially if these businesses were owned by you. So this process can, just doing this alone can give you a rare opportunity to have a free look inside other businesses. Now, in this worksheet, now that you have a great deal more information about who you want on your team and what type of player you're actually looking for, now's the time to begin selecting that team. So go to your workbook. In exercise number 1, we're going to go through the selection process of these team members. The first thing you want to do is to select at least 5 potential firms to choose from. You can start by simply asking them for references from any other entrepreneur that you know that has undergone an acquisition, or ask your own accountant or lawyer to give some recommendations on who they think might be a good fit for you. But the point here is that you're not just going to select the first one you choose. You're going to do some due diligence with at least 5 of each type of advisor to make sure that you're getting a great team member. The next step is to ask for references. Now, it's certainly not an unreasonable request, and all good firms are going to have no problem meeting this request. Next, you ask for a list of transactions which these firms have already participated in, and some details of the work performed for these clients, because you want to make sure that these deals are similar to the type of strategic deal that you want to accomplish. Also keep in mind this, that employees move between professional firms, and so you need to ensure that the expertise is still with that professional services firm. So ask if the same employees or the same team is available that completed the transactions that they give you references for. You're also asked to be allocated an advisor with personal experience in these types of transactions. And then lastly, don't skimp on this. You're going to want to make sure that you contact all of the references and make sure that they tell you what they tell you matches up with the advisor tells you. If everything checks out, then select the firm that you feel can best handle your needs. But in case that doesn't work out, then you at least still have a list of backup advisors since you did all this homework. So complete the worksheets, complete the work. In this module, here's what we covered. We covered how to identify the team members best suited to get you the best deal when you sell your company. You now know what your role is in this team, as well as the roles of your accounting advisor, your legal advisor, and your deal coach. We then discussed the role of this deal coach and how crucial it is to have an experienced team member on your side to advise you. In this next module, you're going to learn about how to put together purposeful business systems so that you can have a great strategic strength when you select the strategic buyer, and that great strategic asset that your buyer is going to pay you top dollar for in your business. Also, again, keep in mind, the program here is as much about implementation of each module as it is about the information that you've learned. Now, in order to get it all completed, I want you to set up a massive action work environment. So set aside time to complete each of these exercises in this module, as well as previous modules, even if that means that you've got to make an appointment with yourself or an appointment with your own team to make sure that the time does get set aside. If you're completing these exercises with your team, set aside time for you each to do the work independently and then come together and create that shared vision. Don't worry about making it look pretty. Don't worry about making it look neat or using exact words or getting all the details just right. This is about getting the concepts onto paper so everyone's working together. Find a quiet room where you won't be disturbed to do this. Put a do not disturb sign on your door. Close it and lock it. Turn off the cell phone. Turn off your email. Turn off any instant messaging or chat features. Close out all the programs. This is about massive action. So go out now. Take massive action every single day so you can experience your own financial liberation.